Hey guys, welcome back to the Replay Media. Today, we're diving into the realm of body horror, where things get delightfully gross and uncomfortably squishy. We're talking about those films that make you squirm in your seat as they explore the absolute worst nightmares of the human body. So, what's body horror, you ask? Well, it's like when your worst fears about your own flesh and bones come to life on screen. We're talking mutations, transformations, and all sorts of bodily chaos that'll make you want to cover your eyes if you can stomach it. So grab some popcorn, or maybe not if you're feeling queasy, and let's check out 10 body horror gems that'll have you questioning whether you really want that extra slice of pizza tonight. Altered States, 1980. Directed by Ken Russell. Alright, so body horror has this thing for mad scientists, especially when they're the guinea pigs for their own crazy experiments. Picture this: Frankenstein and his monster merging into one wild ride, kinda like a twisted remix of Jekyll and Hyde. That's what you get in this flick, based on the only novel by Oscar-winning screenwriter Paddy Chayefsky. Now we've got William Hurt stepping into the limelight as a professor who decides to take a dip in an isolation tank filled with some potent tribal brew. Surprise, surprise, things don't go exactly according to plan. Instead of unlocking the secrets of the universe, he starts devolving into some primal state. Talk about your awkward science experiments gone wrong. Chayefsky was all about diving deep into the mysteries of the mind and identity, but he didn't count on clashing with director Ken Russell. These two butted heads big time, with Chayefsky eventually saying, "I'm out of here," and yanking his name from the project. But hey, even though the script got a bit of a makeover, Russell's visual wizardry really brings the whole thing to life. And let's not forget Hurt's trippy hallucinations. We're talking seven-eyed goats and a crucified Christ. It's like a psychedelic roller coaster ride through the weirdest corners of your mind, courtesy of Russell's wild imagination. Strap in, folks, cause this one's gonna take you for a ride you won't forget. The Fly, 1986. Directed by David Cronenberg. So David Cronenberg's been trying to dodge this whole king of body horror title for ages. Back in '86, Cronenberg dropped this gem called The Fly, and suddenly he's the talk of Hollywood. Well, technically, it was all filmed in Toronto, but close enough, right? Jeff Goldblum's in it, playing this wacky inventor who accidentally gets mixed up with a housefly during his teleportation experiments. Now you'd think this flick's just about gross out effects and gooey stuff, but nah, it's got layers. Some folks tried to read it as a metaphor for AIDS, but Cronenberg's like, nah, I'm just here to mess with your head about life and death and all that deep stuff. But whether you're taking it seriously or just in it for the freaky fly-human hybrid action, one thing's for sure, The Fly hits you right in the feels. It's like a roller coaster ride of emotions and body horror that'll have you questioning everything, including why you decided to watch it in the first place. Street Trash, 1987.
What do you think, Glenn? If it had a smile, it'd be a Mona Lisa.
Directed by J. Michael Moreau. Alright, imagine this. Greenpoint, Brooklyn, where the streets are buzzing with the worst booze you've ever tasted. That's the chaotic setting for Street Trash, a flick directed by James Moreau that's basically a big fat monument to terrible taste. This movie proudly sits on the Mount Rushmore of a special subgenre called melt movies. Yeah, they're exactly what they sound like, and let me tell you, it's like a time capsule straight from the late Reagan era, when New York City was the poster child for urban grit and grime. Street Trash doesn't hold back one bit. It's like, hey, let's make fun of everyone, especially the homeless.
Don't do that!
Director Moreau's not exactly known for his sensitive side, but hey, he's all about pushing boundaries, right? So what's causing all the chaos? Some seriously lethal moonshine that's turning people into human puddles. And if that's not enough, There's also some seriously messed up stuff involving, let's just say body parts. And get this, one of the first scenes involves a dude melting into a rainbow sludge while sitting on a toilet. Yeah, that pretty much sets the tone for the whole movie. It's a wild, wacky ride of gross out humor and sleaze that'll have you laughing and cringing at the same time. Slime City, 1988. Directed by Gregory Lamberson. Alright, so if street trash is feeling a bit too Hollywood for your taste, then buckle up for this low-budget gem that's like the DIY version of a melt movie. Picture this. A young artist moves into a new apartment building and gets handed some super sketchy booze by his neighbor. Classic setup, right? But here's the kicker. Turns out this place has more history than a museum, with a creepy cult vibe straight out of Rosemary's Baby lurking around. And our unlucky tenant? Well, let's just say he wakes up one morning covered in slime and spewing green goo like it's his new morning routine. With symptoms ranging from a craving for a Himalayan yogurt to straight up murderous urges, you gotta wonder if he should have read the fine print on that lease. But hey, at least he gets a killer climax out of the deal, complete with some seriously impressive practical effects. So yeah, Slime City may not have had the big budget glitz of Hollywood, but who needs that when you've got goopy goodness and DIY charm? Director Gregory Lamberson might not be Sam Raimi, but he's definitely got a knack for making you squirm and laugh at the same time.
Stop calling me Alex! I'm Zachary!
Brain Damage, 1988.
They kept me weak, but I still left them. Is that what you want, Brian? Want me to leave you too?
Directed by Frank Henenlotter. Okay, so imagine you're Brian, just minding your own business, when suddenly this creepy little dude named Elmer shows up attached to your neck. And what does Elmer have to say? Oh, just promising you a life of rainbows, music, and eternal happiness, as long as you keep him fed with a steady diet of human brains. Talk about a parasitic party pooper. But hey, Brain Damage isn't your average horror flick. It's like a trippy roller coaster ride through the weirdest corners of New York's nightlife. One minute you're in nightmarish funk, and the next you're cracking up at the absurdity of it all. It's got that punk rock vibe, taking a cue from Abel Ferrara's Driller Killer and giving it a twisted psychedelic twist. Director Frank Henenlotter knows how to make the most of his budget, serving up some seriously wild effect scenes that'll have you scratching your head and laughing at the same time. And as charming as Elmer might seem with his promises of euphoria, underneath it all lies a dark pit of despair. So next time you're feeling down,
No way! It's not gonna happen again!
just be thankful you don't have a brain-eating parasite attached to your neck. It could always be worse, right? Tetsuo, the Iron Man, 1989. Directed by Shinya Tsukamoto. Alright, so we're talking about Shinya Tsukamoto's mind-bending classic here. But let's be real, this flick doesn't play by the rules of any genre. It's like Tsukamoto threw a bunch of ideas into a blender and hit experimental mode. So picture this. There's this dude called the metal fetishist who's all about sticking metal rods into his body, supposedly to run faster. Yeah, you heard that right. Apparently he's taking DIY body mods to a whole new level. But before we can even wrap our heads around that, he gets squished by a car carrying a salaryman and his girlfriend. Talk about a rough day. From there, it's a wild ride of black and white chaos with Tsukamoto channeling some serious David Lynch vibes. You know, that industrial, gritty aesthetic straight out of Eraserhead. But don't think for a second that this is just some artsy-fartsy film school project. Oh no. Tsukamoto amps up the cyberpunk vibes with drills and all sorts of freaky stuff. It's like a relentless assault on your senses, diving headfirst into themes of sexual repression and body dysmorphia with all the subtlety of a sledgehammer. Clocking in at just 67 minutes, it's a whirlwind of surrealism that'll leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about body horror. Trust me, you've never seen anything quite like this. Body Melt, 1993. Directed by Philip Brophy. Alright, so we're diving into the wild world of exploitation with this one. And let me tell you, the title doesn't lie. It's a full-on body meltdown extravaganza. Directed by someone with some serious academic cred in the body horror department, this flick takes a bunch of unsuspecting folks in the Melbourne suburbs and throws them into a twisted pharmaceutical nightmare. Picture this, a dodgy drug company peddling cognition enhancers disguised as harmless vitamins. But instead of boosting brain power, they're turning people into gooey messes, complete with tentacles sprouting from unexpected places. And that's just the beginning. Sure, it takes a bit to get going, but once it does, oh boy, strap in for a wild ride. We're talking inbred bogans straight out of The Hills Have Eyes, a nefarious doctor played by none other than Neighbours' Harold Bishop, and a murderous, rampaging placenta. Yep, you heard that right. A placenta on the loose. And let's not forget the obligatory melting faces, disembowelments, and even an exploding, well, you know. It's like Peter Jackson's early films on steroids, if he traded hobbits for horror and added a hefty dose of Aussie insanity. So if you're into wacky over-the-top gore with a side of down-under flair, this one's for you. Ginger Snaps, 2000. Directed by John Fawcett. Alright, so picture this. You're a teen dealing with all the usual stuff, homework, crushes, and oh yeah, turning into a frickin' werewolf. Talk about your typical high school experience, right? Well, maybe not so typical. Ginger Snaps takes the whole puberty thing to a whole new level by throwing lycanthropy into the mix. Instead of the usual werewolf dude, we've got two death-obsessed sisters in a Canadian town dealing with some hairy situations. Literally. It all kicks off when Ginger gets her first period on the same night she gets attacked by a werewolf. Talk about bad timing. Next thing you know, she's sprouting fur, fangs, and even a little tail. But hey, according to their guidance counselor, it's all just part of being a girl. Yeah, right. But little sis Bridget isn't buying it. She knows something weird's going on, and she's not about to let her sister turn into a furry monster without a fight.
Ginger.
Director John Fawcett keeps things rolling with some slick moves, but it's the screenplay and Catherine Isabel's performance that steal the show. They've got comedy, horror, and tragedy all wrapped up in one ferocious package, kinda like a werewolf in a prom dress. So if you're into coming-of-age stories with a side of supernatural shenanigans, this one's a howling good time.
I have a class.
Titane, 2021. Directed by Julia Ducournau. So picture this. Julia Ducournau's Titane walks away with the Palme d'Or at Cannes in 2021. Talk about hitting the jackpot in the body horror world. This flick's like a wild roller coaster ride you just can't predict. And trust me, you don't want me spoiling any of the juicy surprises, especially when it comes to all things body horror. It's like if the new French extremity movement, Claire Denis's sensuality, and David Cronenberg's philosophical ponderings all got together for a bizarre movie mashup. Sounds like a party, right? But seriously, Titane's got some seriously unforgettable scenes that'll have you scratching your head and questioning everything. With powerhouse performances from Vincent Lindon and the cyclonic Agathe Roussel, you know you're in for a wild ride. Just make sure you buckle up. It's gonna be a bumpy ride. We're all going to the World's Fair 2021.
I want to go to the World's Fair.
I want to go to the World's Fair.
Directed by Jane Schoenbrunn. So not every bio-horror flick's gonna have you seeing bodies turned inside out. Take Jane Schoenbrunn's debut, for example. It's more about pricking your finger than gut-wrenching gore. Meet Casey, a teenager who decides to take part in the World's Fair Challenge online. Step 1. Say, I want to go to the World's Fair 3 times. Step 2. Draw some blood and smear it on your screen. Yeah, it's about as weird as it sounds. Next thing you know, Casey's diving into a world of strange symptoms with her online community sharing their own bizarre experiences. One kid's growing fungus, another's turning into plastic. It's like a freaky internet fever dream. Think of it like Kiyoshi Kurosawa's Pulse meets ASMR and creepypasta with a dash of found footage vibes thrown in for good measure. We're All Going to the World's Fair takes you on a journey through the digital realm where the internet isn't just a place to hang out. It's like a parasite feeding on our very souls. So if you're up for some chilling contemporary horror that'll make you think twice about your online habits, this one's for you. Just be sure to keep some band-aids handy. You'll never know when you'll need them for a weird ritual or two. And there you have it, folks. 10 body horror flicks that'll have you laughing, squirming, and maybe even questioning your life choices. Whether you're into gooey practical effects or deep thoughts about the meaning of existence, there's something in this subgenre for everyone. From Cronenberg's twisted visions to indie gems with that special DIY charm, the world of body horror is as diverse as it is unsettling. So next time you're itching for a movie night that's a little off the beaten path, why not give one of these films a whirl? Just make sure to keep the lights on and maybe stash a barf bag nearby. You never know when these things might get a tad too squishy for comfort. And with that, we bid you adieu. Thanks for joining us on this wild ride through the freaky and fantastic world of body horror. Until next time, stay curious, stay spooky, and for goodness sake, keep an eye on those appendages. You never know what might be lurking just beneath the skin.